I got your email, Matt, and I decided probably the best way to maybe help you is through a video. I could do it over email, but sometimes it's very hard. So hopefully maybe this will help you out a little bit. I looked over your homework for the graphing, okay, for the first module in Module 4. And, I did notice this on your exam as well. It seems like you're getting signs backwards and wrong. And that's a lot of the times the case with most people that graph incorrectly. It's a sign thing. Most people that struggle in math, it's a sign thing. So you seem to be missing signs. That's one thing. I'm not sure exactly how you're graphing, whether you're plotting the 2 points or whether you're doing slope and a point. But it's another thing I noticed in your graphing is your slope is the opposite of what it should be. So in other words, it's kind of the correct slope, but again, it's a sign thing. So in other words, if your slope is -3/4, you should be going like down 3 and right 4, and you're going down 3 and left 4, or something like that. You're doing 2 negative movements, I think. That's just my guess. Because when the slope is negative, it should be down and right or up and left. But if you do up and right, see, that's positive. If you do down and left, that's negative over negative, which is positive. So that's what it looks like to me. It just looks like you're just messing up on signs. Your intercepts on a couple of your graphs I looked, it was the sign. Like it should have been a -2 intercept and you had a +2 intercept. So I'm thinking if you're solving the equation for y and putting it in slope intercept form, you're missing out on the sign. So let me show you. I'm going to move this camera and show you what I think might be happening. Okay. Get all this crap out of my way here. So bear with me. I gotta set up this thing here so it's not too crooked, not too awful bad here. If you had seen how I have this camera set up, you'd probably laugh at me right now, but that's all right. It accomplishes what I need. So for instance, if you have an equation like this, okay, and you're solving it for y, well, you subtract your 2x from both sides, okay? So that leaves me -y is -2x minus 2. Okay, you can't forget about this negative sign. It's got to stay here with the y. Then the next thing you have to do is you have to divide both sides by -1, which creates a +2 here. Okay, so then your 2 is your y-intercept. Your slope is up to right 1, and then you can graph it. That's just my guess as to maybe what's going on with the graphing part of it. Because, when you're solving these systems of equations, your goal is to find the one answer, x and y, that's common to both equations. In other words, it solves both equations. So that's one thing that I see could be an issue. Now, as far as, the other modules, when you get into the substitution method or the addition method, okay, again, you're thinking of finding that point of intersection. And one way to do it was from the graphing. Okay, one way to do it was from the graphing. Another way to do it is from either using the substitution method or the addition method. So I'm kind of talking and writing right now so I can get an example of one of the ones you're working on here. Okay, so let's look at this. This was the second homework question you had from the module 4.2 or whatever it's called. Now, they're asking you to solve it by substitution. There's no way I do this by substitution. What I tell my students, I've given you 2 methods, do it however you want to do it. Okay, but when you do this by substitution, it just gets nasty because there's going to be a lot of fractions here. Okay, but I'm going to show it to you. So, the goal when you're not solving these by graphing is to try to get an equation that has all x's or all y's. That way you can find x or y. You cannot solve this equation up here because there's infinite solutions that work for this. Same thing down here. But if we somehow combine these two equations and create a third equation, then we can solve for x or y, and then that automatically only gives us one answer for the other variable. So I'm going to do this by substitution. So what I'm going to do here is solve this equation for y. So I'm going to divide both sides by 3. Okay, so that gives me y, and then I'm going to distribute this 3 here. Now, you have to keep everything as fractions, and I'm going to simplify this 3x over 3 to just x. Because if you don't, then your answer is not going to be precise enough. So this is what I end up with. So this is y. Now, I take this expression here, and I'm going to substitute all of this into the other equation for y. Okay, and again, you may understand the process, and it could be fractions and signs that are messing you up again like it is for your graphing. So I'm going to take the 3, and then I'm going to multiply. That's my y, 8/3 x minus x plus 4x equals 5. Okay, so see, now I've gotten rid of my y's. So I'm going to distribute here. So 3 times 8/3, and then 3 times negative x, which is just negative 3x plus 4x is 5. So when you multiply these fractions, I get 8 minus 3x plus 4x is 5. Combine these x's here, and I end up with, I'm going to go up here a little bit, 8 plus x is 5. So it actually worked out pretty nice. Subtract my 8 from both sides, and I get x is negative 3. So please, you've got to be conscious of your signs. That's something I see students mess up all the time, and I have a feeling that's part of your issue with a lot of things you do are your signs. Just a guess, but I've been doing this a long time. So now I have x. Now the good thing about it is, to find y, I've got an equation already here with y equals. So I take y is 8/3 minus x. X is negative 3. Let me let that thing focus. So, sorry about that. I don't know what's wrong with my camera. Now, x is negative 3, so that's minus negative 3, which becomes plus 3. Now, how do I add this together? Well, you can find a least common denominator. 8/3, you can make it 2 2/3, however you want to do it. But if I'm doing by least common denominator, that's 9/3 for 3. Add them together to get 17/3. So those would be, my two solutions. X is negative 3, y is 17/3. So that's the substitution method. Personally, I would do something like this equation by elimination, by the addition method. Okay, so I have the same equation here. Let me make sure I copy everything down right. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to get all my x's on one side. So I'm going to leave the first equation untouched. add 3x to both sides, all right, to bring this minus 3x over to the other side. Now, the addition method, or elimination method as I call it, means that we're going to try to either, if we're not given opposites, we can create opposites in either x or y. So in order to have an opposite, I need like positive 3y and negative 3y. I don't have that here, but I can make it, because remember, you can do anything you want to an equation as long as you do it to both sides. So if I multiply this by negative 1, that gives me negative 3y, which gives me opposites. But I have to also multiply the 3x by negative 1 and the 8 by negative 1. So again, I leave the top equation alone, multiply both sides of the bottom equation by my negative 1, and that gives me, and you have to watch your signs, so I'm just going to tell you right now, you need to make sure you double check your signs. Always double check your signs, make sure you're getting your signs correct. So what happens is these make 0, okay? This gives me x, this gives me negative 3, so x is negative 3, just like we got doing it the other method. Now, I still have to find y, so I can go up to any of these equations up here, and knowing that x is negative 3, find my y. So I will probably choose this one because there should be less steps here, okay? So 3y is 8 minus 3 times negative 3. And this is 8 plus 9, which is 17. Divide by 3 to get 17/3. Okay, so, that's the addition method. So when you're doing these systems, find a method that you like. Okay, even though you're asked to do it by substitution, how will I know how you do it, right? Unless I see it and I don't. So you do it the way you want to do it. That's what I always tell my students. That's just the way it is. The goal is to get the answer right, and if you're more comfortable doing substitution, do substitution. Sometimes equations are set up for one method versus the other, but if there's not really set up nicely to either substitute or to add, then do it how you want to do it. But I would watch your signs. That seems to be a trouble area, just noticing what you're missing and how you're missing it. Seems like you're getting signs wrong, and just practice the process. So if you're not understanding the process, that's one thing. If you're understanding the process and still getting the answers wrong, that's probably a sign issue. So good luck, and just keep practicing. It's not going to kill you, if you struggle on a couple of these, but just find something you like and go with it. Okay, I hope this helps.